A few months ago, I was in Palm Springs, California, and I was enjoying a warm summer night where they have like this small street festival. And there was a guy playing saxophone. He was a busker there, and he drew a huge crowd. It was amazing, man. This guy played everything from classic rock to even a bit of hip hop. What made this guy so good was the fact that he was playing over some brilliant backing tracks. You just can't do hip hop without that beat. I looked at the saxophone case to make a donation, and my wife was like, hey, you got to get this guy some money, right? I said, okay. So, I was going to be cheap. I looked at this case, and this case wasn't full of dollar bills and $5 bills. It was full of 10s and 20s, right? So my wife told me not to be cheap, so I threw a $20 bill into that already overflowing case. This guy was making a fortune that night, right? So, what's the story all about? Here's the deal, folks. Backing tracks have taken the music industry by storm, and it's no secret that they're becoming increasingly popular among musicians and performers alike. Everything, EDM to rock to hip hop, seems like everybody's using them to elevate their live shows and recordings. And I'm telling you, the guy in Palm Springs would not have drawn that crowd if it wasn't for the fact that even though he was a brilliant player, those backing tracks helped set that mood. Hey, my name is Henry Clarke. Welcome to Senior Musicians Unite, where I provide tips, tricks, and industry info to help senior musicians, like us, right? Keep creating great music, keep moving, and stay out there and stay current. So let's talk about this backing track thing. Now, there's a growing concern that backing tracks are somehow fake music or inauthentic, or that they're eroding the value of, quote, real musicianship and reducing live performances to mere karaoke sessions. And some argue that relying too heavily on backing tracks take away from the authenticity of a live show. And that is not truly live if you're not playing every single note yourself. Is that fair criticism? Are backing tracks really the enemy of musicianship, or are they simply a tool that can be used for good? And when you think about it, there are plenty of examples of legendary musicians who've used backing tracks to great effects. From the Beatles to Pink Floyd to Madonna to Metallica, the list just goes on and on. And what about theater musicals? I've seen quite a few off-Broadway musicals, and all the music was backing tracks. And let me tell you, these were great shows. I mean, I just saw the Temptation Story a couple of months ago, and the cast was huge, and the music was great, of course, and the singing was just flat out outstanding. But all of that music was backing tracks, and it was fantastic. And yet, there are some people that find the idea unsettling that a musician can actually fake it in front of a live audience. I don't call it faking it. Some people think that it's fake if you just created an illusion of a full band or orchestra without actually having to learn how to play all of those instruments themselves. Come on now. Is that any difference than when you're creating your backing tracks and Band in a Box or any type of composition software that you use? The track is still computer generated. The track is still, quote unquote, not real, So it's a slippery slope. And it does raise some tough questions about whether it means to real musicians that those questions are about real tracks or not. But I'm going to tell you something. The general public, they don't care. I mean, I always talk about how picky real musicians are, and they're the hardest people ever to please. But let's think it through for a second. One of the biggest benefits of backing tracks, in my opinion, is that they can be a total game changer for musicians. The ability to focus on your singing or your stage presence without having to worry about playing that complex riff at the same time or having a horn section as part of your arrangement is truly liberating. And even the hardware vendors have recognized the need and developed systems that are made for playing backing tracks. Some solo performers just use an iPad full of tracks. Then there's the TC Helicon, Voice Live, or the Boss Loop stations, and a host of other systems that let you load an entire set list. And you can control the tracks from a foot pedal, which is really, really cool. And guess what? It's also extremely widely used. Why are these systems important? They're important because it's recognized that backing tracks allow you to connect with your audience in a way that might not be possible otherwise. Maybe you're a solo artist and some of the instrumentation that accompanies your songs, you just can't take it on the road to every city or every gig. And you can't afford to hire a string section or a horn section or 3 or 4 background vocalists. You just can't do that. It's just not cost effective. But you know what? When you perform that song, people expect to hear all of those elements that made that song good. And believe me, they expect to hear that. What about some of you seniors singing oldies at the senior village or the retirement community? You need those backing tracks because they help you, get the sing-along going, right? You're trying to get, Frank Sinatra, right? Come fly with me. You're trying to do that, You need the big band backing track going in order to make it really, really come home. You know what I'm saying? But of course, like anything else, there's a flip side to the coin. It's been said that if you're relying too heavily on backing tracks, you may not be pushing yourself to improve as a musician. You may not be developing the skills you need to really own that stage and connect with that audience on a deeper level. Now, I personally think that's garbage because a lot of times what connects you with your audience is your showmanship and your stagecraft. It's also been said that a potential downside of using backing tracks is that they can make it harder for audiences to connect with your music on a deeper level, and that when they're watching a live show, they want to feel like they're experiencing something real and authentic, something that's happening right in front of them. And if the music is being piped in from a computer, that can be an actual buzzkill. Yeah, that can be true. But it also kind of depends on the type of music you're doing. The type of music has a huge impact on how that music is actually being played and what's happening during that live show. So, what does the data say? What do we actually know about the impact of backing tracks on musicians' careers and live performances? Now, for guys who watch my videos, I'm a big data guy. I do research, and I dug up a study. And that study suggested that musicians who use backing tracks in their live shows tend to see a significant increase in fan engagement and attendance. In other words, people are more likely to come out to a show if they know it's going to be high energy and quality produced experience. That's a compelling argument for using backing tracks, at least in certain contexts, because you are doing a show for regular people, for an audience, not for other musicians. And one of the most surprising things that I discovered while researching this topic was just how widespread the use of backing tracks really is. Even some of the biggest names in music are using them to augment their live shows, and it's not always obvious. Sometimes it's just a subtle enhancements to the vocals, to the rhythm sections, or other times it's a full-blown backing track that's driving the entire performance. Think about the Super Bowl, that halftime show, full of backing tracks, man. I'm telling you, it's full of backing tracks, So are backing tracks ultimately helping or hurting musicians? I think the answer is a little bit of both. But I personally think that it helps more than it takes away. Because on the one hand, it can be a powerful tool for enhancing a live show and connecting with an audience. On the other side, it can also be a crutch for musicians and prevent them from developing their skills and connecting with their fans on a deeper level. But here's the deal. I think if you're a senior musician, especially a singer or a small gigging artist, I think that good backing tracks are essential in helping you connect with your audience, get gigs, and make a profit. A key point here is make a profit from your performance. Think about my Palm Springs story that I started this video with. The proof of being a great solo artist and using great backing tracks added to the size of the crowd and ultimately the sack full of cash that this guy had accrued, including my 20. Hey, thanks for watching. Tell me what you think about backing tracks as a whole. Do you use them in your performance? Have you benefited from including them? If so, let me know. Again, this is Henry Clarke, Senior Musicians Unite, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.